Hello, Sacred One. It is David Ault. I'm so honored that you're taking a little bit of your time to join me here for the gathering. I'm going to ask you to do something, and I really want you to participate, and that is to take a deep breath with me. But before we do that, I feel like it's always important to get settled. So, wherever you're seated or whatever it is that you are involved in as you're listening to this, to the best of your ability, if you can prepare yourself to take a deep breath. Sometimes what that means is maybe hands on chest like this, and take a couple of shallow breaths just to bring your attention to the activity of breath. A couple of shallow breaths, almost as if we're warming up for the big one. Another shallow breath. And if you're ready now, what we're going to do is just take a deep, deep, deep breath. Here we go. I'm going to ask you to do one more. And this time, I just want you to think about the idea of breathing your body. You're going to breathe your body. Mm. When we breathe our body deliberately like that, there is a beautiful presence of bringing ourselves into harmony with the now moment that is so much more suitable for dialogue like this than just randomly scrolling and listening half-heartedly. So I always want to get you to participate with me wholeheartedly as much as possible. So now that we're here, um, we often talk about the fact that to evolve or to become more aware requires an involvement. So it's pretty understandable that if I'm going to talk about, for example, a country, Cambodia, if all that I know about Cambodia is what I read in books or what I watch on some movie or screen, then I really don't understand or have a visceral experience of Cambodia. It isn't until I have made a journey there, that I have walked upon the soil of that land, that I have mingled with its people, that I am beginning to even uncover just a little bit of what my experience and my involvement with Cambodia actually is. And so as I begin to speak about that, there's a different reference point. There's a little bit of wisdom gained from that experience. And that's true for everything, right? Whether it's a food, if I'm talking about pizza, but I don't have a direct experience of eating pizza, then again, it's just sort of a kind of knowledge grab from the intellect that doesn't have any real substance. But when I've experienced the biting of the pizza and the taste of that, then as I talk about that, there's an association with that. And so when we think about spirituality and we think about all of the things that we have talked about, all of the things that we have read about, there is there's only as much as we have been able to involve and absorb ourselves in that becomes real. And where I'm headed with this is the idea of the infinite nature of what we are, the the understanding of the constancy of harmony. And that is, again, like talking about a foreign land that I've never visited. If there isn't some deliberateness in leaning into harmony at all costs, not harmony dependent upon how the outside world is behaving or how the outside world is participating or doing according to what the picture in my mind of harmony is. The spiritual understanding of this resting nature of harmony, of balance, of meticulousness in its constancy, uninterrupted. If that is true, then how will I go from just intellectualizing that to actually having visited the experience to the best of my ability, even when present conditions feel or seem out of harmony, right? So, where I'm going with this again is there's an invitation. The invitation says to push nothing away and not to grab at anything, pushing nothing away and grabbing at nothing. An equanimity, if you will. You can relate that to human desire. So, for example, these past weeks, I haven't felt really 100%. I haven't felt well. And things have been incredibly busy, and there's been a lot of travel involved. And I will find in my mind that I am wishing that I was in a different state than where I am. A natural thing that we all share, right? When one is not feeling well, one can only hope and long for the time when they are well. So that means that I'm grabbing at something in the future and I'm pushing the present state away. And that's a very understandable response, particularly with all things physical, because none of us want to linger in unwellness or not feeling well, because it's just not a place that we're used to feeling equanimous or feeling at one with. There's a conditionality to want to get over it, to get away from it, to make it go away. And yet, when we're talking about understanding the constancy of harmony, here's a really good practice that when I'm not feeling well, can I not rush at masking the symptoms? Can I not rush at trying to evade myself or avoid the uncomfortableness, but to take time into just sitting and being with that sensation? The actual practice of not wanting to push anything away or grab at something futuristic to come in and fix it or replace it. Now that's a big leap, right? Because most of us that's a really hard one. It's a hard one for me. Um, there's a lot of old information that's stored in there that is associated with if I feel this particular way or if I feel this particular way, there are certain things attached to that, like decline and lack of optimization or missing out or missing income. There's this rush and this fever and this scheduling and this ideology that says everything's got to look like this in order to maintain whether I want to call it success or survival or anything, or to be what I'm supposed to be from a spiritual fabrication is all running up in there. And there's very little practice, I believe, of any of us just resting in the nature of what the phenomena that is going on at this time is. So I've done my best, and I've not been 100% successful, but I find that when I catch myself wishing that it would go away or catch myself trying to avoid or rush the situation, that it only tends to exacerbate the discomfort. And when I just notice that this is where I am right now, and the best thing that I could do for this is to pause and to rest and not to try to do anything to shift or change it, but to be with that. And there's a phrase in Tibetan Buddhism that I came across, and it in English translates into infinite evenness. Infinite evenness. So this is one example of just our physical nature, None of us wants to be nauseous. None of us wants to be short of breath. None of us wants to feel out of sorts or jet lagged or tired or knotted up. And when these things happen to the physical instrument, we are groomed. We are subjugated to practices of trying to remedy it right away. And I'm not saying that certain activities and certain methodologies and mobilities are not good for those things, but to find ourselves exploring what does it mean to not just immediately rush into trying to fix it. For example, one time I had this automobile, a truck actually, when I lived in Los Angeles, and a piece of gravel flew out of the road once and it hit the windshield and it made one of those little holes and one of those dings. And of course, they tell you that if that happens, that if you don't fix that right away or get it repaired, that this crack is going to start and it's going to kind of go across the windshield. And I remember looking at that, and something came over me that said, allow yourself to be with the flaw of this windshield. Don't be in such a rush to fix it. And being with this hole in the windshield and watching it progress, watching this sort of line begin to go across, was an exercise in just being with what was and allowing myself to kind of overlay current lessons of vulnerability, not wanting to mask them or fix them, just practicing being, just by looking at my cracked windshield years ago, was a really beautiful, present spiritual practice. So to just look at all the things that society tells us is imperfect without trying to rush and fix it is a really good leaning into the idea of not pushing anything away and not grabbing at. And when I think of that dynamic, I think about infinite evenness. Infinite evenness. It's a mighty practice, I believe. I was going to say, particularly in these times, in any time. And I know these times feel so heightened for so many, myself included. There's such a seduction and such a pull. And what I want to do is not find things that want to fix any of that by pushing away something or teaching you to grab at something. But I want to sort of remap this, reapproach this in a way that says, instead of doing those things which may temporarily fix, which may temporarily make our physical discomfort feel better, to do something that's more, I'm going to say, the long game. Practicing this idea of equanimousness that isn't dependent upon anything in the physical. It's just resting in the nature of whatever phenomena comes. And I know that this message isn't going to be for everybody. I know that it's not going to be palatable for everybody. And people are not going to be interested if the seduction of action is heightened. But for those of you who might be looking for something like this, the infinite evenness, I want you to just reference it in this way, to look at what is and neither push anything away or grab at to change it. It's going to feel very counterintuitive. So much, even of our spiritual instruction is about doing these things, about practices, right? And what I'm asking is you rest from that. And again, feels very counterintuitive. The world's going to shout at you and say, you should be doing. And I'm going to not shout at you. And I'm going to say, pause, 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 pause with the thought. Thoughts are phenomena. Pause with the physicality, the discomfort. Pause with it and just be with it. What this ultimately cultivates within us is the freedom to not have our good or our pleasantries or our states of being conditioned on anything out there, but to really, from a sort of primordial place, understand that that equanimous nature or that infinite evenness is matched to the harmony, the constancy of the harmony and the wholeness of what it is that we read about. And so now, instead of reading about it and thinking it's this thing and talking about it intellectually, now we're actually practicing resting in the nature of that simply by those dynamics of not pushing anything away and not grabbing at. Just give me 5 minutes with that, tops a day, even right now. Just when you think about this, or you maybe watch this or rewatch this, allow this to be an invitation to ask you to practice that. And I know it's going to feel foreign, and I know the mind is going to wander. But the benefit of that is something, it's the gentleness that we only speak about intellectually, but have perhaps not felt in a long time. It's the connection that we only speak about intellectually, but have not felt in a very long time. It is the equanimous nature, the harmony, the infinite evenness that we read about, but we haven't felt in a very long time. And I say perhaps now is the time for us to do that. Infinite blessings, my friend.